This is the summary of The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, a counterintuitive approach to living a good life by Mark Manson. Introduction. Charles Bukowski's gravestone reads, "Don't try." This may seem like a strange last message from a man who fought an uphill battle to be published. However, Bukowski's success didn't come from changing his life in any radical way. It came when he decided all he wanted was to write, and he stopped caring about anything else. It came when he recognized that he was a loser, and he wrote honestly about that, rather than trying to sound like a winner. At a time when everyone is trying so hard to be better, Bukowski's advice of "don't try" presents a different approach. When you catch yourself engaging in negative self-talk about all of your personal failures, "Wow, that last screw-up was a doozy," or "when will I be as happy as everyone on my social media feed," it's liberating to just stop caring. The solution to this modern anxiety is to not care. But don't stop caring in an indiscriminate manner. There are 3 subtleties to not caring in a way that leads to a good life. 1. Not caring isn't the same as being totally indifferent. Indifferent people don't care about anything. Not caring means being selective about what you don't care about. You don't waste your care on things that don't really matter to you. 2. To stop caring about trivialities, you need to care about something more important. Caring about every single inconvenience and the 1,000 trivialities of everyday life is often a symptom of not having anything meaningful and fulfilling to care about. 3. Consciously or unconsciously, you are constantly choosing what to care or not care about. Life is full of things beyond our control. But even if something isn't in your control, it can still be your responsibility to respond to it. Choosing your response can be a source of empowerment, even if the circumstances are out of your control. Happiness is a problem. Pain is not just a constant part of life, it's a useful one too. Pain teaches you what things to avoid or pay attention to in the future. The agonizing pain of your first heartbreak helps you be more mature in future relationships. Genuine happiness comes from finding real solutions to life's painful problems. You shouldn't simply avoid your problems, instead, get to the root of the issue and figure them out. So, the way to find happiness isn't to ask, "What life do I want to be living?" but rather, "What struggles do I want to take on, and what problems do I enjoy solving?" While a painless life is impossible, it is possible to choose struggles that bring some fulfillment. It's like setting out to climb Mount Everest only because you think the view might be nice. You must get some thrill out of the climb itself to make it worth the ascent. You are not special. In the 1960s, people were taught that having high self-esteem was a benchmark on the path to becoming a better person. They believed that thinking highly about yourself could lead to real psychological benefits. This led to generations of people who thought they were special simply because they were told that they were, and not because they actually did anything great. They were told to think positively about themselves, and good things would just come. But there is a difference between genuine self-worth and entitlement. People who are entitled think they deserve something without needing to work for it. This often leads to ignoring real problems to maintain their self-confidence. If something great happens, they think it happens because they're great. If something bad happens, they blame it on other people's jealousy of them. Real self-worth, on the other hand, means being able to acknowledge negative experiences and aspects of your character and address them. Only by acknowledging these flaws can you fix them and improve upon yourself. The value of suffering. Suffering, or choosing to take on certain kinds of suffering, is what gives meaning to life's problems. The challenge is recognizing which struggles are worth taking on and which aren't. This is particularly difficult when so many people lack the self-awareness to determine their values. This self-awareness allows you to get to the bottom of things and figure out why something bothers you deep down. Maybe you value having a close relationship with your sibling, but you seldom talk to one another on the phone. The problem isn't your value, having that close relationship is important. But the metric with which you measure this value, time on the phone together, might need to change. Maybe a close relationship doesn't mean regular phone calls. There's also a challenge in determining what a good value is. Don't fall into the trap of setting up bad values for yourself. Bad values are superstitious, destructive, and out of your control. For example, material success isn't a great value because your self-worth shouldn't be measured by how successful you are at work or how much money you have in the bank. On the other hand, good values are reality-based, socially constructive, and within your control. Being honest and charitable are good values. They are things that can be realistically practiced, and the exercise of these values strengthens social bonds. You are always choosing. When people feel disempowered, it's often because they are faced with problems they can't control. It's easy to create a self-fulfilling prophecy when you feel doomed to misery by some accident you had no hand in. For example, when you go on a date, it's easy to focus on the one flaw you think makes you unlikable, your height, your teeth, your finances, and obsess over it. You've chosen a value beyond your control, and you believe it determines your failure. On your date, you now see any sign of disfavor as related to that trait. But the truth is that the date probably didn't go well because you have nothing in common, not because of your bad teeth. Yet, there is a kind of comfort that comes in this. It's easy to blame failing on something that's beyond your control. The date didn't go well, but it's not my fault that my teeth are bad. However, there is a distinction between responsibility and fault. Just because you take responsibility for something doesn't mean it's your fault. You're responsible for choosing actionable values. Instead of placing value on your teeth, you could place value on finding someone who likes you as you are. Otherwise, by choosing values out of your control, you're responsible for your problems. You're wrong about everything, but so am I. You're always wrong about something. Maybe it's something personal, like a firmly held childhood belief. Or maybe it's a widely accepted view, such as the sun revolves around the earth. Human history, and even your individual life experience, is a journey in becoming less wrong. Instead of striving for certainty and putting life on hold until it's found, the goal is to accept and live with uncertainty. You must be able to cope with discovering that you were wrong all along. The way to do this is to use your self-awareness skills to ask why something is important or desirable, and then consider what it would mean to be wrong about that. Would being wrong create a better or a worse problem than being right? It may be a struggle to put aside the threat to your identity that comes from discovering your assumption or value is wrong, but it's the only way to become less wrong. For example, let's say your daughter wants to go to art school, but you disagree and think she should go to law school. She's a very talented artist, but you think art school is a bad idea. Soon, you find that your once close relationship is now riddled with arguments and silent treatments. At a certain point, you should stop and ask, what if I'm wrong about this? Consider alternative reasons why you don't want her to pursue a career as an artist. Maybe you think being an artist isn't a reputable profession. Maybe you're afraid she won't be able to support herself on an artist's salary. Maybe you're jealous because you wish you would have had the guts to go to art school. The next question is, what would it mean if I'm wrong about this? If she is talented and passionate about art, you may be holding her back. Perhaps the real reason you don't want her to go to art school is because of you, not her. That's not a flattering conclusion, but it's one that you must consider. And finally, ask, is being wrong going to create a better or worse problem? You have two choices. You can continue fighting with her about art school because you think it's a bad choice. Or you can realize that you don't always have the right answers for her. This means letting her make her own decisions and trusting her to forge her own path, for better or worse. The first option is the easier one. She's wrong, and I'm right. But the second option leads to a better relationship with your daughter. Only by putting a microscope on why you're really upset and considering what it means to be wrong can you ever hope to grow. Failure is the way forward. People often view failure and success as mutually exclusive. But it is the cumulative lessons of a lifetime of failures and successes that develop talent, discipline, and determination. One way to overcome the fear of failure, which persists even after recognizing that it's a part of any successful life, is to just do something. People often wait for motivation or inspiration before acting, but on the contrary, action is what triggers motivation. A graduate student working on the final section of her thesis feels run down by her years of effort and at a loss on how to tie everything together. Still, she gets up before work and writes for an hour every day. At first, it's difficult and unproductive. But her ideas sit with her all day, and the next morning, she starts at a better place than the one before. Each seemingly wasted writing session creates the momentum and motivation to get the real work done. The importance of saying no. It may seem counterintuitive, but rejection can be a blessing. Think about your circle of friends. Whose advice do you generally value more? Your positive friend who makes you feel better but never really challenges you, or the friend who gives it to you straight when you're screwing up? While the honest advice may be difficult to hear, it's what makes a difference. Rejection can make you see something in a different way by looking honestly at your work and developing genuine reasons why it should change or stay as it is. The flip side to accepting rejection is setting boundaries. Some people fear rejecting others even more than they fear facing rejection themselves. Having strong boundaries doesn't mean that you never do anything for anyone else, it means that you help others because you want to and not because you feel obligated or fear other people's reactions. And then you die. Ernest Becker was an anthropologist and philosopher who had a controversial tenure on his way to San Francisco State University. His book The Denial of Death postulated that humans were the only beings who could conceive of themselves abstractly and therefore the only ones aware that they're going to die. Moreover, humans conceive of a second self distinct from the body, one that we wish to be preserved even after death. Because of this, humans attempt to cement a legacy with immortality projects, such as architectural marvels or technological innovations. The overall goal of these projects is to allow people to avoid facing the reality of death. Sometimes, it is better to question the conceptual self and face the unalterable fact of death. What eats away at people is not the enormity of meaningful questions, but the thousands of vain trivialities that distract from life while it lasts. Conclusion. The art of not caring is about directing your care and energy to things that you genuinely find fulfilling and truly want. This requires developing self-awareness about your problems. Figuring out the source of trouble, why it matters, and whether you should care. You should challenge assumptions and seriously consider the possibility of being wrong. You should also establish good values, ones that are immediate, socially constructive, and realistic. A painless life is an impossible dream, but you can choose to accept a certain amount of meaningful suffering in order to pursue something you truly care about. This brings happiness and fulfillment, not just in success, but in the attempt as well. Rather than recklessly caring about every little thing, the point is to not care in a deliberate and subtle manner. 3 subtleties illustrate the meaning of not caring. 1. Not caring isn't the same as being totally indifferent. Indifferent people don't care about anything. Not caring means being selective about what you don't care about. You don't waste your care on things that don't really matter to you. 2. To stop caring about trivialities, you need to care about something more important. Caring about every single inconvenience and the thousand trivialities of everyday life is often a symptom of not having anything meaningful and fulfilling to care about. 3. Consciously or unconsciously, you are constantly choosing what to care or not care about. Life is full of things beyond our control. But even if something isn't in your control, it can still be your responsibility to respond to it. Choosing your response can be a source of empowerment, even if the circumstances are out of your control.